It's Sunday night. We didn't do a talk last week. Yeah, it's only my third time doing this, so bear with me. I'm just going to recap this last week, mostly kind of like commenting on the videos and the comments in my videos and what's been happening. And yesterday with the van, what might be happening next week. And I'm drinking while I'm doing it. I'm not a big drinker. I can go years without drinking. And I didn't drink for a few months after my last trip to Tacoma, actually, because we were drinking every night there. That was with our friend, Sarah. You guys, a lot of you were here because of her. It's the famous, invented by me, Tennessee Chola. It's coffee liqueur and honey Jack Daniels. I like me a tasty beverage. It's got a kick, too. Let's see where this goes. If I do it with Jack Daniels and the coffee liqueur, I call that one the Mexican redneck. I was a bartender for years, and so I'm still inventing my own drinks. Yeah. Speaking of Sarah, there's a chance that I will be in Tacoma this weekend for President's Day weekend. We'll see. There's going to be a swap meet there, flea market. And that's the plan. I was texting with her yesterday about it. She said it might not happen because of weather, and if it rains, it'll be postponed. So if it's not raining, I'm planning to be there. So make your plans accordingly if you're not doing anything next weekend. I didn't ask her yet about the road. I think it's the 127, if they open that or not. If not, I'm going to have to take that mining road back in. That's fine. I'm okay with it. This is all conditioned upon the van with what I did yesterday with putting the bumper on. Because it's not finished. I mean, it's mounted, but I've got to make these custom brackets to attach the poles to the body of the van so that the swingaways work without, racking all over the place and mounting the tire and everything else. So if I can get that done this week on top of the work I have to do this week, excuse me, I think I need a drink. Any excuse to have another drink. Yeah, if I can get that all dialed and it doesn't rain, I'll be in Tacoma this weekend, which will be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing Sarah. I haven't seen her in a while. So, and I still got to figure out my YouTube. I haven't made a dime off of YouTube, for any of you guys who are wondering about it. They're holding a pretty good amount of money for me. It's just that I have two AdSense accounts. It was a mistake when I set it up. I have to delete one of them. Sarah helped me with that when I was there last time, and I was sure which one it was. She said she wasn't, so I didn't. And when I came back here, I contacted Google. They told me which one. And then I'm just very dyslexic with this stuff. I got on there. I spent like an hour. I could not find the spot to delete that account. So hopefully Sarah, if you watch this, please help me. Because we'll delete that one, and then I guess I'll get the money or whatever, and then I'll just start collecting every month. So it's different all the time. It's contingent upon you, but really it's up to me. If I'm not churning out good enough quality stuff that's going to keep you guys interested, then I'm not going to do well. Speaking of, let's talk about the big video this week on my channel, which was the Vladimir Putin Tucker Carlson interview. I recommend you watch it for yourself. I did a whole video on why. The comments are overwhelmingly in favor or supporting what I had to say. I don't do this because I want people to agree with me. Just so you know. I do it because that's what I really think. And I wasn't trying to, say I'm in love with Vladimir Putin. I never had a huge issue with him because I understood the reality of it. He's a murderer and he's done this and that. Okay, so have all of our presidents. I mean, we are no better than they are. Historically speaking, it's different. If you want to go back in time and talk about communism and Lenin and Stalin, Marxism, communism, and all that, that's a separate issue. That's not what Russia is today. It's a different thing. But what I might not have made clear in there, because a couple people were like, one guy was like, oh, he's got this thing in his ear, so they're telling him what to say. You can't talk that quick if somebody's telling you what to say. You can't repeat what somebody's telling you that quick, you know. It was a translator, which I just thought that was funny. And I'm sure that Carlson was wearing one too in his left ear, but because of the angle he was shot at, we couldn't see it. Also, keep in mind that it was shot 2 days earlier. So what I noticed was the translation in English was actually ahead of what he was saying. So they checked that. You know what I mean? They put it in time so there wouldn't be as much of a delay, I think, with the interview for the sake of time, which makes sense. So just throw that out there. But there's a lot of people out there, it's the same mindset. It's funny to me because there'll be people who are like Trump supporters who will, you know, hate Putin or whatever, anybody, pick anybody, based upon what they've been told by the media, and they never do their own research. And at the same time, they're going to yell at the media and people on the left for hating Trump because of what those people believe, because they just watch the media. So they're doing the same thing that they have a problem with other people doing. So check yourself, man. All right, on that. Somebody used the term revisionist history. I use that a lot. There was no revisionist history there. He said everything he said is verifiable, and it's funny to me because I watched it all happen. When he was laying things out, you know, before the Obama administration, through the Obama administration, all the dealings with the vice president there, which he didn't really get into that much. He kind of glossed over that. I wish he would have done it. He couldn't do it, I don't think, because he's the sitting president now. But the whole bereavement thing and Hunter Biden and everything else and the money laundering and the power bait, the struggle that's going on there, the influences from all these people, everything he said happened. And it happened in a successive order that he laid out, that I watched happen. So it's not like I don't have to think to myself, gee, is he telling me the truth? I know he's telling the truth because I watched it happen. But what was great about the interview for me was it's the first time anybody has said, I mean, I'm not talking about going all the way back to 920 AD here, but I'm saying that as far as when he was talking about the current, like in the last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, what's taken place with Europe and NATO and Ukraine and all of that, and the way that they've been doing things on purpose, basically to provoke a war. And if you listen to what Hillary Clinton used to say, she wanted us to go to war through Ukraine. You know, and the whole thing with what happened in Libya, you know, and the whole thing with Saddam Hussein, which really had a lot to do with currency and them wanting to use their own currency and not use the American dollar and all of that. These are things you might not be aware of, but it's all real. So I'm just saying what I liked about it was, you know, he sounds like a real world leader who's 100% competent, that understands what's going on, and he was speaking at things from the way I think a world leader should be speaking about things, which is economically speaking for the health and welfare and benefit of his own people and his own nationalism and all that, which is something we should have. This push that's going on by who knows who, trying to get us all to be some one world type of government with a currency and rules and everything else. I don't like it. I don't like that. I don't think we should be doing it. There's a great book. I didn't think I was going to show you this, but yeah, let me show you this real quick. Here's my butt. Isn't that great? It looks bigger like a bush because I'm wearing camo. All right, this book right here. This is good. This is good. You guys should read this book. Our Occulted History. Like the gist of this book here. Maybe I'll read something from it. There's a couple quotes on the back here. Praise for Jim Marrs. Rule by secrecy. Think you know what's going on? You don't. Entertaining, jaw-dropping. That's the Wall Street Journal. The best conspiracy book I ever read. Not only did I love it, I went out and bought a copy for someone else just to spread the word. That's Jeff Fortier, the Kansas City Star. I've given away 4 copies of this book already. All hardcovers, and I always buy another hardcover for myself. Jim Marrs can't be ignored. Few in this country shout about the truth louder than he. Dallas Observer, Crossfire, the plot that killed Kennedy. Oh, I guess these are other books he's written. Anyhow, the gist of it, well, you know what? I was not going to do this. But let's go ahead and do this for you. How's that sound? I had a guy one time give me grief. He thought I was commenting on movies from time to time, and he's like, well, that's the thinking of somebody who watches films and never reads a book. I got a pretty good library, man. I got a pretty good... Not that I'm some genius. I am no genius. All right. Forgive me if I flub this, because I haven't read this part in a while here, but for years we've been taught that human progress has been a long, slow climb from the primordial ooze to hunter-gatherers to empires. But what if that's only part of the story? And I'm going to jump to something else here real quick. I brought up... Oh, boy. Ah, man, it's another channel I told you to watch. He's an anthropologist. I have his book, Species with Amnesia. Robert Seffer. Go to Robert Seffer's YouTube channel. He posted a video the other day, and it's debunking the out of Africa theory, which is fantastic. It's fantastic because, I mean, they really spell it out, and it's awesome. And we're learning all this now because of DNA. And I always had a problem with the whole thing. Like, you know, we were taught Darwinism, survival of the fittest and all that, and we now know that that can't work. We know now that there was not a linear life. You don't know this, by the way. If this is news to you, listen up. It wasn't one creature to the next that begat man. There was times on this planet where hundreds of different types of hominids lived amongst each other and interbred. It's fascinating what we know now. And actually, our races are very different. We're all human, but we're very different. And there's no... that thing that they would always, whenever they found the oldest thing, the oldest DNA or remnant of a human ancestor, they always tried to write history from that point forward as if there was a linear thing, looking for a missing link. It was never the correct way to do things. So I highly recommend that you go to Robert Seffer's YouTube channel and watch the Out of Africa thing. Watch that. Check it out. It's pretty wild. It was always funny to me. Because I always looked at it, oh man, it's like the Russian thing and Putin. I live in the city. When you live in the city, you get to be around people from all over the world. There's a lot of Russians here, man. A lot of Russians, you know, for years, decades, I've talked to them. And when Putin comes up, they're like, yeah, you guys aren't seeing the reality of it. What they see and what they know. Compared to what we get in the media. That the media wants to create a boogeyman all the time, right? So it's similar with the whole history thing. And it was always weird to me. You know, there's a band. I'm sorry, I'll get back to this. But there's a band around the Earth. You got the equator. Going above the equator and below the equator. All the way around. There's a pretty temperate, it's pretty warm climate. Where you could, 90% of the time, you could basically be walking around naked. And be comfortable. So you have to think about humans that developed beyond that, where it was much colder, and what their brains, how their brains had to work for survival, and how that's going to change. Like the people from those areas are going to be a different mindset, like a faster maybe mindset, maybe a little bit more motivated, you know, because when you don't have to work as hard to survive just as far as climate goes, your brain's going to develop differently than if you live in an area where this is not something I read somewhere. This is just my own. This is something I was thinking in college, you know, when I was in my early 20s. Like, I didn't understand. So I'm just trying to apply common sense. So, you know, I'm just saying a lot of what they taught us is just not so. And they're learning more. And it's great. The textbooks that are out there are already wrong. You cannot keep up with the technology. Well, the technology being used now to discover the new discoveries that they can't, by the time they print it in the book and get it out there to the school systems, there's already going to be new information that trumps the information that they just printed in the book. Do you understand what I'm saying? It is almost better if kids had tablets or something that can get the latest information. But anyhow, let's get back to this. There's 3 or 4 things that popped in my head, but I'll be all over the place today. Excuse me. For years, we've been taught that human progress... Okay, I got you. Best-selling author and legendary conspiracy researcher Jim Marrs, who has investigated the recent financial crisis, the JFK assassination, the National Socialist takeover of America, now takes on his biggest subject, the history of mankind. offering mind-blowing information that will radically alter the way we think about the world and our place in it. Mars goes beyond the revelations of his classic Alien Agenda, must have been another book he wrote, interweaving science and authentic archaeological finds with provocative speculation to show how human civilization may have originated with non-humans who visited Earth eons ago and may still be here today. Bum, 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 bum. Dramatic music. Okay. Our occulted history overturns conventional knowledge and beliefs, presenting compelling evidence that the Earth once hosted prehistoric civilizations using technologies that very well may have surpassed our own. And there's evidence of that everywhere, even under the ocean. Sound unbelievable? Just a few hundred years ago, so was the concept that the Earth revolved around the sun. Mars shifts through the historical, scientific, and cultural records, showing how numerous ancient texts and tablets tell of visitors from the stars colonizing the Earth, from the flying Vimanas of the Hindu Vedic literature and the flying shields reported by the Romans to the mysterious airships of the 1800s and the UFOs of today. He argues that someone other than us is still present on this planet. But are these visitors simply observers, or do they play a much more active and controlling role? Question mark. Jim Marrs raises this shocking question and more in this provocative and persuasive Our Occulted History. There is something like 40 pages of reference material, sources here, that backs up what he's saying in this book. And I'll give you a quick synopsis here, kind of like a gist of it that I gathered, that I still recall. I got to read this again. It's been a little while. If you were to look at the hieroglyphs, like the first generation hieroglyphs, the oldest ones in Egypt, first of all, the precision with which these things are done, it's pretty crazy. And a lot of people speculated that it had to be done with machines because it's just that perfect. And some things are so symmetrical, it's pretty wild. And there's evidence of that all over the world. But you don't have to read hieroglyphs. Just look at the imagery. You're going to see giant human people, that they look like humans. Sometimes they're blue. Next to normal size humans that are us, which are much smaller. And there'll be like this woman sitting there, and she's got little babies on her lap, and one is like a normal looking human, the other one has an elongated head, you know? And so they're depicting different types of humanoids in the same carvings, and you got to ask yourself, what the hell is going on there, man? What's going on? So the gist of this, what you're going to kind of gather is that there were these beings that came here. And by the way, this is the same story you get from ancient peoples on every continent on this planet. You can read the cuneiform writings, the Epic of Gilgamesh, all that. The 12th planet, Zechariah Sitchin. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Get into the Vedic texts, India, the Hindus. That stuff was going on at the same time. The stories that we get that create our Bible was going on. That's what's crazy. So many people are attached to the history that comes out of the Bible, and that was just one little tiny part of the planet. There were people all over the planet living at the same time. You might not have heard that before. They might not be telling you that in church, but it's a fact. And the Vimanas are crazy. I'll get back to this. Don't worry. I'm going to tell you. The whole thing with the Vedic texts are great because, according to what I recall, what they have is like 7,000 years old, but it's actually copied from stories even older than that. And it literally has schematic drawings of UFOs and the propulsion systems and how they work and everything. And they talk about these battles in the sky and these blue-skinned beings that had all these weapons and they're looking like lasers and stuff going on in the sky. I wish I could remember the name of the city that they thought was mythology, just like they thought Troy was mythological till they found it. And off the coast of India, they found this city now that was mentioned in a lot of these myths, but it exists. They keep finding out that things are older, and they keep finding new stuff that proves the mythology to actually be true. So there's way more going on here than what we're told. And that's because the people ruling the world today. That's what this book gets into. So, and there are these cataclysmic events that take place. We know this. A couple for instances, right? So there are these ancient structures all over the planet. There was at least 3 different build periods that we know of based upon the fact that they always oriented these structures to north, south, east, and west. And when they look at the north facing thing and they go, boom, shooting north, and they draw lines from these structures, they cross into 3 different locations. So there's been 3 different north poles, meaning the planet has shifted 3 different times during the course of humans building megalithic structures. Is that kind of mind-blowing to you? It's pretty wild, huh? It's going to happen again, too. And it's like 12,000-year cycles. 12,000 years, 24,000 years, 36,000 years. And we're entering one right now. We're in the middle of one right now. It's not the oldest structure right now. It was for a while, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, where they've got these T-shaped stones with relief carvings that protrude from these stones that are all these animals, and they finally figured out that the animals are actually constellations, and it's a warning that when the sky has these constellations in this order, this happens, and that's what our sky looks like right now. So I think this collective conscious thing of people wanting to be prepped and having a van that's 4x4 with all your gear in it and everything is because collectively our conscious knows something's going to happen, and people just want to naturally survive. And in the past, when these cataclysmic events have happened, and who knows what's going to happen, asteroid strikes, whatever, there are structures on most of the continents, probably all of them, probably not all of it has been found, but a lot of them have been found, with gigantic structures underground that were complete cities, carved out of stone in many cases, where thousands of people could live with livestock and everything. Why? Why? And who helped them to do that? Somebody comes down and helps us to survive these events, and that's these people. So this book basically says, hey man, there are these beings that came here that were kind of running the show, in that part of the world anyhow, and they left. And when they left, the humans that were like working next to them, the right-hand people, took over, started running things, and they started calling themselves gods. And the people, the families that are basically running the world now, controlling the media and everything else, can trace their bloodlines all the way back to those people. That's what this book talks about. So if you're curious about it, it's pretty, and again, 40 pages of reference material that you can follow up on. And I've bought some of these books, actually. Forbidden Archaeology, Michael Cremo, and a bunch of them. Like, the stuff it's wild. I love this stuff. To me, this is far more interesting than sitting here and let my brain be programmed with a bunch of BS. Anyhow, there's that. I'm sorry. I got blindsiding you with this. I didn't even know I was going to talk about that, man. That's... You still here? Are you guys still here? Is anybody still here? I think it's time for another sip. Does the booze make me more entertaining? I might have to do this every week. All right, so we're done with that now, and we're done with the whole Putin thing. And I just want to get on the Astro van thing real quick. For those of you that are here, because of the Astro van stuff, Dave wanted me to mention a couple things. So number one, he's looking for a cross member for an all-wheel drive. That's the part that the torsion bars go through. If anybody has one, if you're a junkyard, if you see one, if you can get one, let us know. He wants to play with that and see about, because Dave's making, thanks again to Kai out in the desert. Thank you, Kai, if you're watching this, who sent me his version of the engine lift brackets, which I then brought to Dave. And then, we put our heads together on that. We're like, this could be better. And Dave's a friggin' genius. Like his meaning, he just can't help himself, man. He's got to just really work it out, built this jig, and now he's making this product. And Dave, if you're watching this, some of you in the comments who already have the product and have put in your van have left comments for me to tell Dave how happy you are and to say thank you to him, which you should just do yourself. You communicate with him to get the product. Send him a friggin' note and tell him. I don't have to be your intermediary. These big $3 words don't always come to me so like off the cuff, man. I'm still a palooka. But anyhow, tell them yourself. But it's okay. They're happy. The product is working. So when you lift your van, it's a body lift, but your engine stays low and that oil pan's hanging. And we all have that issue with the oil pan rubbing the front axle. We're all trying to solve that. So, well, just put these engine lift brackets in and a lift for the transmission. Now you're lifting your engine and transmission back up into the body of the vehicle where it was factory. Ton of clearance. Don't even need a skid plate anymore. Still a good idea to put one on. I'll be putting one on my van, maybe even this week. So when you do that, you still have this cross member, this rear cross member that hangs low because it's like a cradle because it supports the transmission, as well as a place for the indexing keys for the torsion bars for the front suspension. So Dave wants to flip it up or cut it, weld one, and basically make something that's more straight across so you have even more clearance at that part of the vehicle. Keep in mind, if you do the engine lift brackets, you're likely going to need a longer drive shaft. All right. Anyhow, that's been a success. I've been running my van, Dave's running his, and now several other people running it in theirs, and everybody's happy. So that's awesome. And then we're going to do a video because I came up with this design idea that Dave finally did. I'm not sure if it's a great idea, but we're going to put a new set in my van just so we could do the video for you guys to watch. And when we do that, we're going to talk about all the issues. It's not going to be an installation video. You'll see it. But we're going to be talking about why we did it. Here's how it affects the van. And here's the benefits of it for off-road use. It's only for off-road use. That's what this is for. If you're a street machine, you don't need to do any of this stuff. Pavement pounder. I don't know, man. I feel like I don't have to keep talking. I feel like maybe I touched on this. I didn't expect to go off on that. I had another thought process I wanted to get into here. But let's keep this short today. All right? We don't have to keep talking. I can enjoy the rest of this drink in peace. I don't need you staring at me, giving me some sort of complex. I'm just screwing with you. Anyhow, I think that's it. That threw me off. The Jim Morris book there. Look, we're at a weird time. We got this new election coming up here. I don't know what's going to happen. I got pretty demoralized after that last election. Living here in California for as long as I have, I've seen the people vote for things that then the state didn't abide by, and they did what they wanted to do anyhow. And I know a lot of people here. There's a lot of businesses here. Most of them have been leaving. But there's just no way. I just don't believe that. Call me conspiracy theorist, crap all over me, say what you will. I don't feel like we could. I hate to say this. I just don't feel like we can trust our election system. To me, I've been questioning it for 15 years or so. When I've been seeing things happen where I'm like, how does that even make sense? Who would do that? Who in their right minds would do that? Now, from what I understand, as far as it goes with the left, their biggest voting block is single women. And single moms, things like that. They're the ones that drive the left. So that's why that left thing, that's why there's all this emotional stuff, because they're easy to kind of control with emotion. And that's what's going on there. So I don't know. There's a weirdness going on here. It's a very scary thing to me. And, I believe in the Founding Fathers and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and all of it. Big history buff, man. I had 4 college level history courses. I got all A's in. And even though I had that, I've learned so much more by traveling and talking to people in these places that was never taught to us. Like, a perfect example, I've mentioned it before here, was when I was back in Greece visiting my dad. I went back there 3 times for him. The first time was visiting him, and the last time was to bring his ashes back. And I dug the hole myself and buried it with my own 2 hands. The whole village showed up. I didn't expect that to happen. My dad told me that's what my job was when he kicked the bucket. So I went there to do that. And I thought I was just going to go do it by myself. But he was such a big deal there. He had the only phone in the village. and everybody in all the villages around there. He had kind of created this little economy, paying people to do things and getting people together to do stuff. And they all showed up for him for that funeral. I don't want to get choked up here, but it might happen. Because I was there in Dickies t-shirt and jeans, man, wearing his straw cowboy hat. And all these people showed up in suits and everything. I felt like a friggin' bum standing there. And they're all speaking Greek. It was all Greek to me. I don't understand the friggin' word they were saying. But it took everything I could to not just fall down and on the ground crying like a baby because of the outpouring of concern for my well-being and the emotion and the love and everything they had for my father. It was beautiful. And the way they work it in Greece is they got these churches and these little cemeteries, and it's just one plot for the whole family, like one grave. They will bury you, and then they'll come back in a year or whatever. They dig you up again, and they consolidate your bones and put it off to the side. And then they just keep doing that. They bury you, they dig you up, they put your bones to the side. Then the next person in the family dies, they bury them in the same spot, dig them up, put the bones to the side. That's how they work it. So we all went outside, and the priest was there, and he did his whole thing, and they grabbed the shovels, and I walked up to my cousin. I said, I took the shovels away, and I said, tell these people to go to the house and leave me alone. And I dug that hole and did it myself. But anyhow, I don't want to get into all that. I lost my train of thought there. I'm trying not to get, overcome here. But anyhow, I went there all these times, and I totally lost my train of thought because I was reliving that experience. Oh, now I remember. So my dad was the oldest son, and he, lives through World War II. The Italians tried to take over the country and couldn't. There's a really funny story about my grandfather. His grandfather would be my great-grandfather. He captured 3 Italians while taking a crap. They were all patrolling around. The Italians were supposed to be infiltrating Greece to take it over. And he's got this little group of guys, partisans, they're up there in the woods, in the mountains there. And he went off to the side to take a shit. And he pulls his pants down, and he's literally pooping. He's got his rifle leaning up against a tree next to him, and he makes this sound. And 3 Italians in the bush about 10 feet away jumped up, dropped the rifles, and surrendered to him. And he's like, he had to have him wait till he was done taking a poop to capture him. They weren't really keen on this job that Hitler gave him. You know what I'm saying? And there's all these crazy stories that he lived through at that time. World War II ends, and the Greek Civil War happens. And so the communists, he always called them the socialists, were coming through all these villages, and they were killing priests, teachers, police officers, anybody that had any sort of authority that people looked up to or whatever. That's how communism spread in the mid-20th century, was through terrorism. That's how that worked. Anyhow, Russia was so, they lost so many people during that conflict. They basically kidnapped at least a third of the children, mostly the males, in all of Eastern Europe, and brought them to Russia to rebuild their population. Now, there's something I was never taught in school. Did you ever hear about that? Now, here's how I know it's true, is because I'm there, and there's a guy that came back from Russia that remembered my father. And he came back with his Russian wife, his Russian sister-in-law, and his 2 half-Russian daughters to move back in the house, which is right down the road from my dad's house. And so we're hanging out one day, and my dad's really nice to this guy and giving him stuff, and they went into some business together. When my dad died, I gave him all the equipment that they bought together and my father's shotgun, which my cousins and I had to go to Thessaloniki and do all this paperwork. It's a socialist state, Greece. It's not what you might think it is. It's not run normal. It's really fouled up there. And I had to go through all this paperwork to be able to give somebody a gift. And when I did that, my whole family got pissed. Apparently, I found out afterwards. They were mad that I didn't give it to somebody in the family. But the reality was, the people in the family, with my father, sometimes there was some aggravation there slightly because, they gave him grief about things he was doing to the house he was born in. That was built in 1913. And my dad's grandfather came to the U.S. at the turn of the last century, 1900-ish. And he tiled the Lincoln Tunnel and worked on skyscrapers in New York City, did all this stuff, took all his money, went back to Greece, literally bought a mountain, built a church, and created the village of Anthusa and built the first house there in 1913. So, so here we are. And my dad, as I told you guys before, 1945, end of the war, there was this program. They took 2 kids from every village all over Greece to go to Athens to be in this boys' army where they trained and did all this crazy shit. And they were educated at the same time. My father's Greek was much better than the hillbillies that lived up in the mountains. Like where we come from up there, they're considered hillbillies. It'd be like the people, like if you were talking about people in the Appalachians or something, right? Not that anybody's better than anybody else. I'm just saying there's a difference in the speech, the way people sound. It has nothing to do with how smart they are. Just because somebody sounds like a hillbilly doesn't mean he's a redneck. You know what I'm saying? Although rednecks aren't stupid either. You can't say that. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Because you know how the media is. If you don't sound... You know, some people have been elected just on the way they sound, man. Well, we're not have to get into it, but some people sound very presidential. Yes, they're good talkers, you know. They sound really good. They're friggin' morons. Really stupid. Bunch of bad ideas. They believe a bunch of nonsense. But they sound really good. They've conditioned us to be okay with phony. It's like, if the politician isn't phony, you don't think he's the right guy for the job. That's where we're at today. Yeah, if you don't know this, I'm going to give you a little history lesson here. I know I'm jumping all over the place. Elected office is not something you were ever supposed to want to do. You were supposed to be selected by your neighbors. They're supposed to be, hey, like 10 guys here, go to your house. We want you to represent us. I don't want to do that. No. We want you to do this. You're the best guy for the job. We know how honest you are. We know how humble you are. We know we could trust you. That's why you need to do this. You were egged on to do it. And then they figured out how to raise money to support you and everything else. That's how that worked. You're not supposed to want the gig, man. Speaking of, if you think about Trump, you know, for decades he was asked to be president. Or why didn't he run for president? He always said, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do that. And then later he started saying things like, well, if I had to. And eventually he felt like he had to. That's how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to want the gig, man. Like, we're in a position today where, because here's the thing. The type of person that wants to tell everybody else how to live and rule over you is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, man. And we're literally at the point now where those are the people who are in politics. The ones who want the job. The ones who want the job are the people who should never be given the job. Like, that should be the test. You want the job? Sorry. You are, no, you can't, no, you just, yeah, your credibility is gone. You want the job. There's something wrong with you. If you want the job, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why would you want this job? Get the fuck out of here. We don't want you. Hey, you over there, the guy who's always telling the truth to the point where you piss everybody off? Yeah, we want you to do it. I don't want to do it, man. No. We want you to do it. You can't pay me enough to do it. No, it's okay, man. It's going to work out fine. You know, that's how it should be. It should be people that don't want the friggin' job. Those are people that need to have the job. Because the people come out and they tell you what they're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to support this. I'm going to support that. I'm going to do this. And everything that they support, all the regulations and everything else, just take more money out of your pocket, make you less free, make you more miserable, make you have to jump through more hoops. But you know what they do? They invent a bunch of bullshit to try to make it like that's the right thing to do. That brings me to another point. It's a good thing I didn't sign off yet. On the Putin thing, I think it was the Putin thing. I mentioned somewhere in one of my videos where I was talking about water, how there's as much water on the planet today as there always has been. I stand by that. That's a fact. It's a scientific fact. And this one guy, who I've now blocked from the channel, I will do that. It's very rare. I think he's the 3rd or 4th person in all the years I've had YouTube that I did, just because he finally just annoyed me. I've been letting him do his thing for a while. I could tell he liked me. He was following. He watches almost all my videos, and but a good 70%. 80% of his comments were attacking me for what I've said, which is fine. I don't, you don't have to agree with me. I don't want you to agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, it's fine. If you're going to tell me it, like, give me a counterpoint. Like, give me a link or something to look up, right? Because I'll do that, and then I'll say, well, that link came from here or whatever, or that's something new. Give me something to think about. Do it that way. Don't just get on your high horse like, oh, yeah. Because you're like, have you seen Lake Mead? Have you seen this? All right, those are droughts. Droughts can happen anywhere. And by the way, Lake Mead right now is filling up. There's a cyclical nature to things. Newsflash for you. The Sahara Desert was once a rainforest. There were rainforests on the continent of Antarctica. How do you figure that one out? Remember I told you about the North Pole being in 3 different places? The Earth has shifted many times. When I think about the glaciers melting, I always think to myself, did it really get so cold and so frozen that that's what happened? Or was that further north and then the globe shifted and the northern, like we'll say Canada, North America, maybe that was further up and then the Earth shifted down. So maybe the Antarctica was up here in the Pacific Ocean and Canada and North America were the North Pole and the planets went soup. And now Antarctica is at the South Pole and this warmed up. And when it warmed up, that's when the ice sheets receded. Like, to me, I was thinking that when I was a little kid. I was having those thoughts. So, I'm just saying we don't have all the answers, man. They're still discovering things. Damn it. I started talking about one thing, jumped into another thing, made that point, forgot what the hell I was talking about. Maybe this will help. You know what? I was talking about the drought thing and the Sahara Desert once being. There's another thing too, and this is kind of controversial about the Sahara Desert once being a rainforest. When the Sphinx was found, only the head was exposed. This is the Sphinx is at the foot of the Great Pyramids, and the head, the human head, doesn't match the body. It was likely a lion's head, or maybe Nubius or something. It could have been some other god with a snout or something on it. Probably a lion's head. And people came along later, and just the head was exposed, and they changed that to a pharaoh's face. All right, the guy running the show. Probably tied into these dudes, as I said earlier. That would make sense. So once they dug it out, people are looking at it and they're going, wait a second. The wear on all the stone, it's highly weathered. This was under the sand for who knows how long. When they dug it out, it was eroded already. And it was eroded by water. Geologists have determined this. It's pretty much, this is what it is now, because it's vertical. It's from water pouring over it for thousands of years. So there was a time when that region where the Sphinx is was just being rained on for thousands of years that created that wear. And then it dried up and the sand buried it. You hear what I'm saying here? Climate change is nothing new, brother. It's always happening, always will. It's constantly changing. You know what humans do? They adapt. Hey. You know what they find off the coast everywhere? Are ancient sites of villages and the way people used to live under the water, right off the coast, everywhere on the planet. What do you think happened? You think those people drowned? Like you're sitting there one day, you know, you're skinning that rat, you know, to feed your family, and all of a sudden, you know, you're ankle deep in water. Yeah, you just stay there till you drown. No. You know what you do? You pick up your shit and you move to higher ground. That's what humans do. That's what they've always done. They move. Oh, it's too cold? Let's move south to where it's warmer. Oh, it's too fucking hot? Let's move a little bit north where it's cooler. Oh, it's too cold? Let's build a house. Like, let's... You understand what I'm saying? Like, the world has gone through all these crazy changes while humans have lived on it at the same time and survived. Ooh, I wonder how we're able to do that without a government system to hold our hand and give us shit and tell us what to do all the time. Come on, man. Give yourself more credit than that. the other thing I was going to mention, somebody said something really funny. I get these comments from time to time, and thank you, by the way. Thank you for being here. But I laugh, man, because whenever somebody says, like, they wish I interviewed somebody, somebody in the comments said, I wish it was you interviewing Putin. Can you imagine me talking to Putin? Actually, that is exactly what needs to happen. Not necessarily me, but somebody like me, just, and not just him, but everybody. Everybody. There should be blue collar type people whose brains work, who are quick, who have a grasp of the things I'm talking about, where you can hit them with that. I was on that radio show with Matt Allen, and it was fun to do that. It was a learning experience. In the end, I didn't like the way the format worked and whatever. I'm not trying to. I like him and what he's doing, and that I could do a whole thing on that. I don't want to berate them. They're very sensitive. I did a video for you guys saying about why I wasn't going to go back, and I wasn't talking any crap about him. But then they did this whole video where they played the whole show practically was talking about me, which was dumb to do because I would have went back eventually, but now I won't. But he had a guy on. His name escapes me, but he is a certified genius. He's a college professor. He's written a bunch of books. He was there to talk about AI, but he knows a lot of other things. Bart Costco, I think is his name. And we went outside to talk after the show, and I hit him with some of this stuff and the UFO thing and everything. And I got pictures of UFOs that I took, that I showed him, and other discussion. And I'm hitting him with this stuff. He's like, well, this is a certified genius. They had a whole 3 hours on this guy talking nonstop. And I'm hitting him with ideas and theories and thoughts that he can't even speak to. And I'm just some guy living alone in an apartment that works out of a garage, that talks to his fucking phone almost every day of the week for your freaking entertainment. How can I? It blows my mind. You got a guy like this guy has worked on scripts with John Milius and others. He's written scripts. He's written a lot of books. Again, college professor. People want to talk to this guy to hear what he has to say. I said to him in the discussion, because he wouldn't shut up, I said, it's kind of hard for you to learn anything if you're always doing all the talking, man. He kind of looked at me funny, but he agreed. That's the genius, is you could say things like that to a guy like that, and they stop and they hear it and they say, you're right. And then they will listen. That's really good. They don't take anything personally because their brain works. That's the best thing about talking to really smart people who are not narcissists. He's not a narcissist. He was a really, really good dude. But it was weird to me. I remember driving home after that thinking, how is it that there's a guy that's college professor, written books, all this stuff, and I'm talking to him and giving him, putting things in his head he's not considering or hasn't thought about, or I don't know what to think about that, because I don't think that highly about myself, to be honest with you. I don't think I'm anything special. The only reason I'm here is because I've been talking to people about stuff like this for years, and they've always said to me, dude, you should be talking to people about it, which brings up the interview thing again. I mean, I'm never going to interview Putin or anything. They would never put me in the same room with those kinds of people. But I need to do it. Dave said it to me the other day too. He's like, you got to start doing interviews. What I'm doing right here would be so much better if I had somebody whose brain worked even on the most basic level. Because we could bounce things off each other and it would be way more fun. So it has to start happening. I would like to interview Sarah. I think it'd be fun for us to have a conversation. Maybe I could talk her into it. I don't know. I don't think she's not really wired that way. She likes to be prepared. She likes to know what she's talking about. She's very polished with what she does. I love what she does. I don't think would be as comfortable with that sort of thing, but she might be. But anybody else, and just normal people, that's the thing too. With all these shows, like, you have to be somebody already, which makes sense. They don't want to pick anybody up off the street because they don't know what they're going to get, right? But it seems like everybody we're seeing on a show as just somebody there to be part of the conversation, like the show Gutfeld. I keep telling you to watch that. It's a great show, Gutfeld. It's on Fox News, but he's the #1 late night guy now. If you take the ratings for all the late night shows, the late night show, I don't know what they all are anymore. I don't watch them. But you take all their ratings combined, Gutfeld, who's on a cable TV channel, blows them all out combined. And it's awesome. But to get on a panel like that, you got to be a published person or a well-known comedian or something. So that's, if you've been hoping for me to get to that place, I don't think that's happened. But they should. There should always be. There should just be people like that. You should have like a, and it should be a shtick in a way, like Schneider. Remember Schneider from Good? What was that? You guys remember the show? Valerie Bertinelli. Great show, Schneider. Chewing the gum. He had the denim vest with the cigarette pack rolled up with the tool belt on. You know, he was nailing all the broads in the building. The handy guy, smart guy. That's what you need. You need a Schneider on shows. You need a blue collar, patriotic American with common sense to listen to what people are saying and go, I hear what you're saying there, but that's total bullshit. That's what you need. Because people who have some sort of pedigree, they're known, they've written books, whatever, they don't get called out. They can spew the stuff, they can say whatever they want, and there could be a discussion with other people just like them, but you need somebody every once in a while and go, wait a second, that makes no sense, or that was done before, and look at what happened that time, and just coming at it from a rudimentary, seemingly rudimentary place, because most people, that's where they're at. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that they're so busy trying to survive and work hard and raise a family and pay the bills and everything else that they're not as well schooled and whatnot, and they might not have all the vernacular down on that particular subject, but that doesn't mean they can't understand it. Einstein said, if you can't explain something in a simple manner, basically so simpler-minded people can understand it, then you don't understand it well enough yourself. He also said, to condemn without investigation is the height of all ignorance. And I see that all the time. It's going to happen here. I guarantee. I said something here and this. I don't even remember what the hell I've talked about so far. I know I talked about this because it's laying down at my feet. But people will do that to you. They'll just throw that at you, and they'll say you're wrong or whatever. Or if I'm talking about a particular subject, they'll poop all over it, but they haven't looked into it at all on their own. It's like the Sasquatch thing. How much time you really put into it? So it's that's the thing. To condemn without investigation is the height of all ignorance. I want you to remember that one. That should be on a t-shirt. You know what I want on a t-shirt? I'm going to do this. There's a timeline going back thousands of years. The record from like the temperatures, world temperatures. And there's a line going across, and then it's all the global temperatures to where we are now. And it shows, like, just within the last few thousand years, these drastic changes. And I just want to wear that t-shirt, when I'm talking to people about climate change or something. I go, yeah, well, I hear what you're saying. Explain that. Explain that. Explain this. Explain that. 2,000 years. Explain that. Explain that. How'd that happen? They weren't driving SUVs then, man. just have it on all the time. Anyhow, that's it, man. I'm done talking. You guys have a good night. I hope you had a good weekend. Let's hit the ground running tomorrow morning. Let's have a positive week. Stay positive. If something bums you out, don't watch it. You have the power to control your own thoughts. You can actually choose to be happy. So work on that. Be kind to one another. Be the best version of yourself possible. Continue to work on yourself, and I will catch you in the next one.